So as you have built up your property management company in-house and begun to manage for other people, what would you say is kind of some key characteristics of a good property manager?
Yeah, it's so much easier. I can tell you some of a bad property manager, right? But
that works too.
Yeah, well, it's like everything in life, right? The bar for entry isn't really high, right? To get your real estate license, we've both done it, right? It's not an impossible bar, and that's the minimum bar to manage for others, right? I mean, you have to work under a broker, but if you're not at least specializing in it, right, that matters. But it's experience and it's understanding. And our first time, we had to get our first client like everyone else, right? And you couldn't say, yeah, we manage for millions of others. We've been doing it for a decade, right? And you had to convince them. And they were a client for, I think, 8 years before I let them go, in all honesty, because it didn't match our priorities anymore, right? But it's important, right? And the skills, of course, it's a customer service job. And if you don't understand that, and it's a long game, right? So both with residents, right? Unlike traditional real estate, right? And the reason I know your background a little bit, you used to work more in that and you don't. I tried to start a brokerage and decided that's not for me, right? They're not the same thing. And I'm not saying you can't do both, but you certainly have to understand they're not the same thing. So you want someone that really gets those nuances of, those residents are with you for at least a year. Successful for an investor is obviously everything over a year, right? That, we want at least 2 years in a single family, 3, 4, 5. You're really getting a good return. So that's a whole different game, right? And you got to be always thinking that way. So you're thinking I explain to every new person, property management is a whole lot of process, right? We have written, documented workflows for everything we do. And nothing ever follows it, right? Because every day something magical and fun happens. So you have to love both being very detail oriented, but understanding nothing will follow the plan. So it's a lot like life, right? And if you thrive on that, and if you find a property manager that thrives on that, they're going to do well. So I'm a software programmer by trade, but I'm also a religion major. That is a weird combination. Makes me suited for this, right? And maybe that's what you want to find, a software programmer with a religion degree. And I love employees that work for me with counseling or psychology background, frankly. It's true. And I have multiple of that because it's a big part of what we do is people.
That's really interesting. I actually got a degree in intercultural studies.
Okay.
Which was very much like understanding how other people think, how other cultures operate. And so I always thought that it was helpful. It helped me to be patient with my tenants, my everything that was involved with the owners and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I have to explain to people a lot. I'm like, we tend to make friends, and I know there's studies on this. The circle around you tends to be just like you, right? And that can be good or bad or healthy and unhealthy, and that's why those studies exist. But if you're going to be in property management, you are going to work with a lot of people that aren't like you.
Yeah.
And if your reaction is they're dumb, they're wrong, they're bad, they're whatever, to me it's a big thing in this industry of if you ask what to look not for, that is super common. And if that's the way you actually feel and go through life, you're not going to do well because the people I work for, the majority of them are not like me, and you have to thrive on that.
Yeah. It's really amazing how many different cultures there are. We tend to, like, if we just stay within our one people group,
right?
We have our own small world and we feel like, oh, this is just how everybody is. But once you step out into the world, there's a lot of different ways to approach things.
There are. And so same thing, your background is perfect, right? You're fascinated by that, as am I. And I feel to be in anything where you're really serving people, that's a key thing. I always say everything we do in our mission statement, all that's the core focus. And of course we know how to, we know cap rates and we know growth. And I know what $10 times 100 units divided by a cap rate means, right? And all that's important. That's a base knowledge though. You shouldn't play if you don't know that, right? But the success is the people part for sure.
Want to hear more on this topic? Click the link below for the full episode of Maximizing Your Property Value.